I'm very honored to welcome you to City Hall today. I want to also start by thanking everyone for joining us on the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's Day of Action. A special thanks to all the organizers for bringing us together today. Ronette from Transition House, Kimberly from the Cambridge Commission on the Status of Women, Jennifer and her staff from the Northeast Native Network of Kinship and Healing for trusting Cambridge and choosing to come to Cambridge to hold a ceremony with us on this important day. And a huge thank you and welcome to all our Native guests who have come and traveled to Cambridge. We come together each year for this day of action because the violence against Indigenous women remains deeply, deeply concerning. The facts speak for themselves. 4 out of 5 of Native women experience some form of violence in their lifetime. Native women face murder rates more than 10 times the national average. And according to the CDC, homicide is the 3rd leading cause of death among Native girls and women aged 10 to 24. We must be outraged by these facts. The violence that Indigenous women face is a legacy of the violence that Native people have been subject to since the first European settlers arrived on this continent. The majority of present-day murders are committed by non-Native people on Native land. It is a legacy of violence, and it's our responsibility to break that. We need awareness and investment at all levels of government to make an impact. The nature of the violence is such that the lack of communication and jurisdictional issues between state, local, federal, and tribal law enforcement make it nearly impossible to begin the investigative process. Our collective failure to allocate the necessary resources to prevent these tragedies means continued pain for our Indigenous communities. The City of Cambridge stands with tribal nations and commits to doing the necessary work to prevent the ongoing violence. Last week, the City Council passed a resolution declaring May 5th, 2022, the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Day of Action in Cambridge. And I would like to close by reading part of that resolution now. Whereas the City of Cambridge shares a critical concern for missing and murdered Indigenous women and a desire to support the needs for justice, awareness, and healing. And whereas Native women are murdered and go missing at a higher rate than any other ethnic group, and many of these cases are part of the spectrum of violence against Native women. And whereas the National Institute of Justice reports that more than 4 in 5 American Native women have experienced some form of violence in their lifetime. And whereas the City of Cambridge recognizes systematic barriers that exacerbate efforts to locate missing victims for families, communities, and tribal nations. And whereas the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Day of Action by Kinship Heals is part of a national movement and is designed to raise awareness and improve the responses of friends, family members, and community professionals when a Native person goes missing in hopes of a positive outcome. Now, therefore, be it ordered that the City Council go on record supporting the Cambridge Commitment to being an ally of the Wampanoag Nation and declaring Thursday, May 5th, 2022, the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Day of Action. Thank you all for joining us today on this Day of Action to spread awareness about this critical problem our Indigenous communities face. Thank you again to all of our speakers today for bringing us together to address this crisis. Thank you so much.
Okay. Ask that you just stand and take a moment of silence of reflection. The Creator taught the the ancestors. The ancestors passed this information on to the elders on to their children, and so on. But one thing which was not was the act of murder and anything else such as that fact. We always knew women were sacred. They are the life givers. But as we reflect back, we think of our sisters, mothers, grandmothers, who were part of these heinous acts. And as a people, we knew that this could not be stood for. Families are to grow, to nourish, and pass on their knowledge. Let that be known today, because the circle of life must continue always. Never raise a hand. If you see something, do something. Times are changing. It's getting more and more difficult in a world which tried to shun us from our teachings from long ago, but as one people and one family, we will stand together, and someday we will find our sisters who have gone missing, and we pray for those that are still out there.
Our chief, Ryan Melanson, he is the chief of the Wampanoag tribe of the Cataquina. And now I'd like to ask the Eastern Woodland Singers to open up our day today with a song.
Oriamo Nakasui Studi Dukomas Masipiat. Welcome everyone. My name is Studi and I come from the Mashpee Wampanoag people, the place of the Great River. And tonight we're going to sing you guys a song in the language, and it's called the Serenity Song.
So my name is Jennifer Randolph. I am a member of the Wampanoag Nation. I'm the executive director of the Northeast Native Network of Kinship and Healing. But more importantly, I'm a mom.
Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. I'm a daughter. I'm a granddaughter, a great-granddaughter, a daughter-in-law, a sister-in-law, a cousin, a niece, an auntie of Wampanoag women.
Take a deep breath.
Sorry, I'm getting choked up.
You got this. Okay. Every day.
So often, I'm asked to speak on behalf of my tribe in regards to the violence that Native women experience. And a lot of times I get choked up because I'm standing here. I'm standing here representing the women in my community. % of Native women experience violence. How did we get here? How did that happen? Why is it that Native women experience violence at higher rates than anybody else? Especially when there's so few of us, right? How did that happen? It happened because prior to even the Pilgrims stepping foot on Plymouth Rock, our women were being kidnapped off the beaches and sold into slavery. During colonization, violence was used as a tool against our women and our children. There was one massacre, right? The colonists lured the men. The colonists lured the men out, right, at a mock battle. And then another group surrounded the Narragansett village, and they set it on fire, burning the women, children, and elders. And as people fled, they shot and killed whoever ran out. That's just one battle. After King Philip's War, they went out, well actually, it was during it. They captured the women and children, and they told the men to come back and turn themselves in, because if they didn't, the women and children would be shipped off to be sold as slaves. The men came back, the men were killed, shipped off as slaves, and the women and children were here kept as slaves. Then you want to fast forward a little bit. Phips Proclamation in late 1700s, where bounties were put on people's heads. It was 25 pounds that were paid for the scalp of an Indian woman. By the 1800s, they were taking the children from Indian women to pay off debts. They'd sell them as slaves, auction them off. Early 1900s was the boarding school era, right? Didn't just happen out west, happened here too. They say we sent our children, our young adults voluntarily, but when you don't have any other options, right? In Naquina, there was no electricity, no plumbing, no running water till the 1950s. You do what you think is right. They sent their children off to learn a trade. Some people had positive experiences. Some people ran away. Some people didn't return home just because. By the 1970s, there was a movement with the Department of what's now like Children and Families, DCF, where they would target Native women and take their children, place the children with white families because they felt they'd be better off assimilating. This isn't just made up stuff, this is real. What happened to those kids in those foster homes? right? I know it's real because my grandmother and her sister lost a lot of their kids that way, some never to be seen again. So when we need to talk about murdered and missing Indigenous women, we need to talk about all of it. It took 400 years of violence against our people, 400 years of living with trauma in our communities. And now we need to stand up and say enough's enough. And we need to search for solutions. But in order to get those solutions, we need to understand the complexity of the problem. We need to understand that it's not just women being trafficked in pipelines in the West. It is that, but it's also here. It's here in our urban cities. It's here in our tribal communities. Just last week, a good friend of mine, she works in domestic violence. She has a job similar to mine. Her relative was found dead in her house, April 21st. Her name is Kimberly Neptune. As I was getting ready for today, last night, packing up the car with brochures and tablecloths and such things, one of the neighbors stuck her head out the window and asked me to carry the thought of her sister with me, her stolen sister. Our situations may look different than the West, but we still have them, and we still need solutions. And we need people to understand that they need to work with the tribes of this state. We need to be seen. People need to know that we're still here, and they need to work with us. We need our voices to be heard. We need to be heard on boards at the state level, at organizations. Today is the first time I think we as a Wampanoag Nation have gathered in such a way to address something. It wasn't done through our tribal governments, it was done as tribal communities. It means a lot today that we have people here from Oquina, Mashpee, and Herring Pond. Together, we can address this and we can end this, especially if we have the help of allies in different organizations such as Transition House, the City of Cambridge. There's ways to build healthy relationships. We had them prior to colonization, and we can have them again. And that is what I commit to today. I commit to working with each other as families, working together to rebuild those strong kinship bonds that we once had, so that we can make sure that our children grow up safe and healthy. So I want to turn it over today to a sister from the Herring Pond Nation.
Good afternoon. My name is Kathleen Gately, and I'm a member of the Herring Pond Wampanoag tribe out of Plymouth, Mass. And I'm happy to be here in front of Cambridge with Mashpee and Oquina. And I want to thank Jennifer for putting this together with her and her group of people. But hopefully, it doesn't have to stop here. I would like us to continue this conversation and work with people on the table from other jurisdictions, from the, our allies that work with us. I want people from I want people to just bring awareness and allow space for healing for Native people. I have worked in, as a social worker, I have worked in other places, and people take Native people and they say, oh, I think they're Portuguese, I think they're black. And it's like, did you ask them? They just take our identity and make us who we are, but I keep on saying we are still here. It's sad that I'm in Herring Pond in Plymouth and people are like, I didn't know you were a tribe. I didn't know there was a tribe in Mashpee. And it's important for us to open our voices and to let them know that we're here. And I'm here to show that Indigenous women, we are leaders, we're resilient, and we're here to begin healing. And it's important that our allies help us out in that situation. That's all I have. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Vicky, and I am from Mashpee. Rather than simply stating facts about the missing and murdered Indigenous women's crisis, I wanted to share a few stories of what happened to my family members and how losing them has been negatively impacted my family. First, I want to talk about my sister, Nadine Costa Peters. Her life was taken on July 10th, 1990. She was 32 years old and had left behind two teenage boys who had grown up without their mother. She was stabbed over 13 times. While her murderer received a life sentence, he is out enjoying his life now. Losing her has left a hole in our family that can never be filled. Next is my cousin, Crystal Perry. She was brutally beaten, stabbed, and murdered at age 43 on June 12, 2013. Crystal's sister was the one who found her, something that no one should ever have to go through. She left behind a son and a grandchild. To this day, the case remains unsolved, and her family has yet to get justice for her death. A walk is held every year to bring awareness to this unsolved crime and to honor her as a loving mother she was. My niece, Jalasia Finkley, was tragically taken from us on October 20th, 2020. She was 17 years old. Her birthday was the next day. For over 2 months, my family was worried sick, searching for her and searching for answers as to what happened to her. Her body was eventually found 1,300 miles away in Florida. The loss was devastating to my family and to our entire tribal community. She has a beautiful smile along with a beautiful voice. I wanted to talk about their stories to help people understand that these people are more than just names in the news, if they make it in the news. These women are real people with families that feel their loss every day. We are asking the media for help in bringing awareness to the missing and murdered Indigenous women crisis. Hopefully, with more attention and stricter laws, their lives won't be lost. Thank you. That is her sixth generation grandchild.
Let it be this way. Way, oh, hey. Way, oh, hey, oh, hey. Nanu, I hear you are. Anama, copy piang tamawash. Yuda hiwana. Asmuji pamontamon. Sayaka. Weyo heyo hey. I'll not let it be this way. Well, hey, well, hey, oh, hey. Tapatanamo.
The tap attack.
The Wampanoag women of Aquina, Mashpee, and Herring Pond stand here before you as a product of our ancestors and our nation's resilience. Oftentimes we are overlooked or not thought of at all. And when we are, it's a passing thought, one where we're often fetishized or glamorized for our culture, but nobody takes the time to take a deeper look or really understand what it is to be tribal, what it means to work as a group, or what our history has actually been and what we've been through. Instead of doing those things, instead of fetishizing us, asking us what we look like in our regalia, or, can I come to powwow to see what everybody looks like and enjoy the food, but not out of pure curiosity, but because you want to sexualize something, which is part of the problem. Take the time to learn about us and what we do in our culture. Learn about the land that you currently are on, and when you travel, the land there too, and the people that thrived there before colonization. Take it wherever you go, because the history is important. Me and my sisters, we are part of the land. The land is us. Respect it, respect us, and that will do so much to help the issues that we face today.
We are all standing here, united as three nations, Aquina, Herring Pond, and Mashpee. Today, our work is not going to end here. It will continue beyond our lifetimes, and it'll hopefully continue on into the future to make the experiences of Indigenous people better. We wish for future generations healing and one day not to deal with this crisis that each and every one of us have seen, have felt, and have gone through. I think we're all tired of our sisters being stolen and murdered, and we all just want to come together and unite. And I think for a lot of us, we don't know how. I think sitting together is a good place to start. And for Indigenous sisters everywhere, we hear you, we see you. And may us unite to fight this. Thank you.